are.
Hi.
It said we're live, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened yesterday? It did the same thing, and I'm like, how did I get us on the screen?
Well, at least you found it. I was early. See?
I did, and you were. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tamara. How are you
Mhm.
doing?
I'm doing well. Thankfully, had a busy day, but I'm
Yeah,
good. You know,
yeah.
we all set up, so I'm happy. I'm not a techie person, so this is a good thing. This is a good thing.
I know, but this is easy, right? Like this is an
Mhm,
easy way to do it. I was just when I could see you, but you couldn't see me,
mhm,
which is interesting. But I was sending out a little message to say, okay, we're going live,
mhm,
because this is my first time using this platform. So I don't even know if we can see if people are joining, but
mhm,
I'll just assume they are. And I'm also going to, it's being recorded. So I'm
mhm.
going to upload it to my YouTube.
All right. Well, that's the best part is that you're recording it. So if it messes up, you'll figure it out later.
Yeah, yeah. So if people don't see it now, yeah, they'll see it,
Mhm,
later. Hopefully.
mhm,
Hopefully. We shall
mhm,
see. We shall see. So thank you so much for joining me on my newly renamed show.
mhm.
I call it Happy Her. It's like a play on happier.
Oh, I like that.
Her. Isn't that cute?
Yes, it's all about women positivity.
It's all about women. I only talk to women. I
Mhm.
only care about women and their happiness. I mean, men, listen, I want everybody to have a great life, right? But my focus is on women because
Mhm.
I feel that we spend so much time caring for other people that we
Mhm.
don't we don't pay attention to ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
I
so this
definitely get that. I definitely get that. But I think we were raised that way in a lot of ways. Societal expectations, traditional expectations, all that stuff makes us feel that way in a lot of ways that we have to cater to. And some of us are natural nurturers. I
Mhm.
am definitely a natural nurturer, but I've always carved out time for myself.
No, you actually make a good point because I was talking to someone else and we agreed that it's the way that women are raised.
Mhm.
We're raised to take care of everybody.
Right.
That's what we are supposed to do. Like you said,
Mhm.
that's kind of our role, which
Mhm.
is great.
Mhm.
But you also have to make sure you put yourself in that equation. And
Right.
many times we don't put ourselves in that equation until we're like stressed out
Mhm.
or we have high blood pressure or we have some kind of health condition where like, oh, I need to start paying more attention like to
Mhm.
myself. So
I think that in a lot of ways, most people don't realize that stress adds to your level of unhappiness and your unhealthiness. So we're also taught in the midst of juggling all of the roles that we have, and traditional women have to work, or modern women have to work. So
mm,
you're doing all the traditional roles and working. You don't realize how much of a burden that is on yourself, right? And no one is saying take care of you. They're saying take care of everyone else. And what about me? So
right. So
yeah,
you're saying you think stress leads to unhappiness. Unhappiness doesn't lead to stress.
right.
Other way around.
I think it could be both, but I think that sometimes when you're so focused on what you have to do, that it adds to your level of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're still taking care of others, so there is no self care there. So it just gets worse and it intensifies. And sometimes, as a natural nurturer or someone who is tasked with taking care of others, there's no space or room for you,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
you have to make it. You have to make it
Yeah.
because it leads to sickness, you know?
Yes, you're right. And I was also reading something about our generation. And so
Mhm.
our generation is kind of a unique generation in that, well, we're almost kind of left out. People are always talking about millennials or they're boomers. They don't
Right.
really talk about us. It's like we're not even here. It's like there's a
Right.
whole generation in between the
Mhm.
boomers and the millennials. But like our generation was the first generation where you had women that were actually out making like more money than
Mhm.
maybe their male, partner.
Mhm.
And they also still had to do all of the house stuff, the house,
Right.
the cooking, the cleaning, the caring for the kids. And I think that's where a lot of the challenge comes in, as you say, because we don't know how to balance. So you hear a lot of this work life balance, work life balance, work life
Mhm.
balance. And it's because of, us coming into the workforce, wanting to, of course, take on all the big roles and that kind of thing, but still
Mhm.
not letting go of anything at home
Mhm.
versus like the boomers where the women weren't making as much money, right?
Right.
So, and they weren't really out in the workplace like we are. And
Mhm.
they had more time to be home with the kids and taking care
Mhm.
of them. If they were, some of them might have just been stay-at-home moms, and that was just the role.
Mhm.
And then you have these millennials. They just
We have those. So, but
they just whatever, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like they all about themselves. They're like,
Mhm.
I don't, care about all the other things. Like it's just all about me.
Mhm.
Where we get caught in that place where we're the ones that are, kind of stressed out. And I didn't realize that. Like I was reading some article about our generation, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that is so interesting because I
Mhm.
do find that it's a lot of women our age that are tasked with, you know, these self-care retreats and
Mhm.
figuring out ways, where they could go and do all kinds of like self-care things because of
Mhm.
all of the, like you said, like all of the stress that's going on
Mhm.
out. So
Mhm. Yeah,
anyway,
but you know what? I agree with that. And it's funny because I didn't read the article. You can send that to me. But I did have a conversation with Cohen. That's, obviously my son, your nephew. Um, and I was telling him, I was like, we're not that far removed from slavery, even. Like when my grandmother was born, she was born in 1920. And then, that generation is like, okay, you stay home, you take care of the kids, you take care of the family, the men take care of you. And then she's the one who's telling my mother and my aunts, okay, go to school so you can have your own money and you can take care of yourself and etc. Right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
they didn't have that
right,
then, right? So
yeah,
now you have our generation, like you said, who's trying to go to school, who's trying to get jobs while still having the traditional roles of what we were taught, that we clean, we take care of the kids, we're supposed to take care of the house, the husband, and this, and you just don't have time for every single thing, right?
mhm,
And it's no one teaching you how to balance it all, like no
right,
one. So there's some, although the millennials are a lot, I will say, there's some things you can learn from them, like to take care of you too,
right,
right? So
right,
that's the one thing I will say is that some of them are saying, I don't want kids, I'm selfish, I want to be able to live my life and travel. I've never seen so many young people on vacation going away the way, we my generation wasn't thinking of that, they're like, okay, this is where we're going. We're going to spring break. We're going here. We're going there, and it's a good thing to see. But
mhm,
there has to still be a balance somewhere in there.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't be so selfish that you only care about you because then your family will suffer as well.
Yeah, that's true too. Of course, we
Mhm.
can't only be focusing right
Mhm.
on any one area,
Yeah.
but I think when we are, I think, but many times we do focus more externally, right,
Mhm.
than
Mhm.
like internally, and that's
Mhm.
when we are suffering.
Mhm.
But that's interesting. You say about the slavery and
Mhm.
how we are really not that far removed,
Yeah.
and there are roles, right?
Mhm.
There's these roles that have been out in society
Mhm.
for what women are supposed to be doing and for what men are supposed to be doing. And they really haven't shifted, you know,
Mm-mm.
they really haven't shifted. So you may find at your workplace, if you're, a working mom or a working woman, that there may be a little more tolerance in
Mhm.
certain places, but not in all, for the
Mhm.
fact that you have children and that you may
Mhm.
have activities or they may get sick or, you may have to be working from home or what have you.
Mhm.
But even with that, I still feel like there's a prejudice, right,
Mhm.
against women. You don't really you don't really get that with men, even if they're parents, right? Men who
Mhm.
are parents, no one's looking for them to kind of, oh, be home with the children, and that's okay.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
like, no. Mm-mm. But women, they can be home with the children, but it may be seen as, I don't want to say a weakness, but maybe they're not up to the task sometimes of or
Yeah.
the responsibilities like of their job, right? Because
Mhm.
they're busy with the family and that kind of stuff. And I think women still, face discrimination in
Mhm.
in the workplace for stuff like that. They don't get the promotions sometimes because they're looked at, especially if they're a mom and a wife, like, oh, she's not going to be as devoted, to the work,
Mhm.
the job. But that's not. true, you
Right.
know? So it all kind of just leads back to like what you were saying about stress and all. So
Yeah. But I think that's the part that I really commend all of these different like organizations who are doing more diversity and inclusion
mm,
um, events, activities, broadcasts, sessions, even mandatory programs that everyone has to watch because it does incorporate all of that, the gender biases, discrimination implicit, all that stuff because it really still is very prevalent that you are looked at a certain way as a female, like you aren't up to the task, like you said. So you
mhm,
always have to go above and beyond to prove that you are
mhm,
equal. Not even more so if if you're definitely trying to get a higher level position, you have to prove to them that you are capable and more than capable.
right.
Yes, sometimes it's expected of the men to
Mhm,
continue to ascend. But for us, it's like, oh, she got promoted, it's a thing. So it's definitely both. Like, I feel like, especially as a Black female and a supervisor and management, etc., it definitely takes a toll. You hear the little whispers, you hear all that stuff. But I'm thankful that I've always found the balance where I work hard in all aspects. So I find myself to be successful in multiple aspects without allowing the societal expectations of me or even the negative comments or even the biases to affect me. Like I keep going, I keep pushing.
yeah,
Doesn't stop.
that's kind of what you have to do, right? Or else you
Yeah.
just kind of crumble. But you
Mhm.
mentioned that you have found balance.
Mhm.
What is balance to you? Because to me, I don't know. When I think balance, I think of like a scale, right? Like,
Mhm.
so things are always going to be kind of equal, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, if I'm doing this is kind of reverse. It's weird. Anyway, so if I'm doing this, I'm like looking this way and anyway. Sorry. But if you're like, okay, I've spent this much time at, I don't
Mhm.
know, work, and I want to make sure that I'm, giving
Mhm.
quality time to my family kind of thing. It's almost like you're trying to make sure that they're even or
Mhm.
equal when I hear the word balance and work-life balance.
Mhm.
And so I wonder what you say about balance. Like, how do you balance? Do you even think that balance is something that can happen? Is that even the right word? Balance?
I say yes because I don't look at it from a mathematical standpoint where it has to be equal. I
Hmm.
feel like you have to do your best in all areas. Sometimes, let's say if I'm studying, because I work for the court system and there have been multiple tests, right? And they're hard, they're the state, you have to study all the laws of the state. So, although I'm a devoted mother, I'm a devoted wife, or whatever, I have to be devoted to this specific thing right now because this is what my priority is. This is what needs my attention right now. I have 6 months to study for this test. If I pass it, then I'm good. I'm promoted. And now you have my undivided attention again. So
Mhm,
sometimes balance looks like that for me. It's about prioritizing your life,
mhm,
right? So although my kids may like my son may be looking at colleges, my other son may be looking at high schools, and I need to study. I have to find a way to do everything. And even if that leads me to stay up to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to put in the work to study so I can get promoted, which would benefit the entire family, then that's balance for me, you
mhm,
know? So sometimes it's just a matter of prioritizing, but not forgetting what is important to you specifically because
mhm,
you can get so caught up in the external pieces that you forget about what's important to you. So
mhm,
for balance for me, it's staying true to me. Like I've never lost Tamara. In all
mhm,
of the roles that I've played, I've always been true to myself.
mhm. So it sounds like when you say balance, you're talking about balancing balancing yourself kind of as a priority and then balancing the other priorities as well.
Mhm,
Like
mhm,
it's not about because what I remember hearing before when I used to you mentioned some of the like diversity and inclusion and thing. And so when I was in corporate America, we did have these different business resource groups they would call them.
mhm,
And one was for women, right? Because you always need to support women because of all the things we said earlier.
right.
And in this resource group, one of the challenges that women would have many times was this work-life balance, right? It was always, I need to, figure out how to balance this and balance this and balance that. And I think that does lead to stress when you're looking at it, as you said, like an equation, because it's not
Mhm.
an equation and it's never going to be an equation. And if
Mhm.
you kind of like let that go, as far as, okay, I've given this many hours to work, I need to give this many hours to
Mhm.
whatever, my spouse or my children, or I've given,
Mhm.
this many hours to, I'm home now and I'm still working, but I now need to go and give this many. I feel like that does lead to more stress because
Mhm.
sometimes you do, as you said, have to focus on some things at that time,
Right.
right? So, as you mentioned, your children may be going through a time when you're like, no, I need to focus on helping them with college
Mhm.
education, whatever, right?
Mhm.
And that's going to be your focus then. There's not going
Mhm.
to be that balance that people sometimes are looking for, where they're like, okay, if I'm focused on this, then how am I also going to spend that same amount of time or focus on this other
Mhm.
area of work? It
Mhm.
doesn't really it doesn't really work that way, I don't think.
I
I
don't think so either.
Yeah,
I
I think
don't
it's
think so.
more about what is your, like you said, what is your priority at the time, and really being driven and focused on that thing,
Mhm.
paying attention to that thing, making sure that you are giving your energy, your time, quality time. People, like to talk about, to that thing.
Right.
And it's not about how much is over here versus how much is over there,
Mhm. Right.
because that's when you're going to have these challenges, especially as working moms. And you're like, oh, I'm at work all the time. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm never home with my children. Oh,
Mhm.
when I'm home, they're asleep. Oh, but when I'm at work, they're at school.
Mhm.
Because that's sometimes that's how it is, right?
Right.
Depending on the age, depending on where you are, the age of the children, depending on where you are with your career or the kind of work that you do,
Mhm.
or as you say, you're back in school, right?
Mhm.
So it's not going to be this balance that we are seeking, and we have to give ourselves, I think, grace, right? As women,
Absolutely.
that
Like,
that's
yeah.
not right. That's not going to be the season. That might not be the season you're in right now. The season you're in right now might be, this is where I have to focus, but I also want to make sure that my spouse knows that they are also a priority, right? But
Right.
it doesn't mean that I'm going to give 2 hours to him, and then I'm going to give 2 hours to this, and I'm going to give 3 hours to, no, no, no.
See, that's when I feel like a supportive spouse or supportive people in your life really come into play.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times when you have to prioritize something, it's time limited.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, if you have to go to school, even like, okay, I may have to do an internship, I may get out next year, I may not get home once I start my internship to 10 p.m. But
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that's going to last forever. That's going
Right.
to last for this time period. Because in the midst of all of your relationships, there is you, you
Yeah.
know, and you can nurture everyone else around you and be left a shell of yourself. So
Right.
sometimes the people in your space have to understand what's important to you and realize that it's not a slight against them. It's not to say, I don't love you, I don't care about you, but it's this is what's important to me, and I need you to support me in this
Right.
because the better version of yourself is better for everyone, right? If
Mhm.
I feel like being with you as my spouse is now a chore or a task, it's not going to be that enjoyable. It's
Mhm.
not, it's going to be one sided, right? And that's going to negatively affect the relationship. So
Yeah.
sometimes I think it's communication that's important,
Mhm.
and really caring enough because I find that a lot of people don't know who they are, and
Mhm.
they don't know what makes them happy, and
Mhm.
they don't know what they like, right?
Exactly.
I've asked that question because 'cause I'll do, like, random spot questions sometimes with people
Really? Wait, at work or just
at work or anywhere. I
yeah.
can be 'cause I like studying people in general, um, so I'll just ask, like, "Hey, like, what do you do for fun?" And
Mm.
you'd be surprised, like, how many people don't really have an answer,
They
or
don't know what they do, or they don't do anything?
they don't do anything, and they don't know what they would do that would make it fun.
Ah,
I actually know people that I've known for decades, and I couldn't tell you what they like.
Right.
because they just go with the flow of whatever. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like there's a space there for themselves, because they get caught up in the routine, they get caught up in what they have to do for their husband or the kids, and that there is no more and I've never wanted to be that, like, ever.
Yeah. That's a really strong awareness that you have, because
Mhm,
I would agree with that. But
mhm.
so now we're bringing it back to happiness, and then I guess we can go down this trail of well, it's all happiness, but you know what I mean? Like, kinda circling back, because you
Mhm,
actually said, I ask people, like, "What makes you happy? What makes you
mhm.
happy?" So what is your definition of happiness, and what have you learned about yourself and happiness as far as what makes you happy?
My definition of happy is what brings me the most fulfillment, right? The
Mhm,
what makes me laugh, what makes me relax even, um, what makes me just be.
mhm,
Right? Because
mhm,
sometimes my happy is I had a long day at work. I want to sit on the couch and watch reality TV,
mhm,
right? And that is my happy. And
mhm,
then I like wine, right? So
mhm.
sometimes I'm like, ooh, let's try a new winery, because wineries are super fun and they have them all over the place. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I researched this winery, let's go. They have food trucks. So sometimes it's
Wine
not,
and food.
oh yeah, wine and food is like my thing, right? So it depends on my mood, but overall, I think I learned this from my mom. Like, she always said you have to learn to keep your own company, which was a very big thing for me. So I've always learned to see what I like, what are my interests, and that's what I chase. So
Mhm,
that's what makes me happy, right? And also, what I like to experience new things and be exposed to new things. And
mm,
I do the same thing with the boys. Like, I always tell them, life is about experience and exposure.
mhm,
So that's where my happiness lies. It's basically where my interest is at that
mhm.
time, right?
Right. Mhm,
Um, and what I feel. Like, I'm very aware of me and how I feel. Sometimes I don't wanna go out. Sometimes I wanna relax, but it depends on your mood, and that's what happiness is for me.
yeah. Okay. So you said some really great things there.
Mhm. Thank
Really
you.
good things, yes. The first thing I loved was what your mom said, which
Mhm.
is you have to learn to keep your own company.
Mhm.
Because that goes back exactly to what your question was when you said you asked people, "Hey, what do you do for fun?
Mhm.
What makes you happy? What brings you joy? What makes you laugh? What lights you up? What gets you
Mhm.
excited?
Mhm.
What are you excited about today?"
Right.
And because people haven't learned who they are, right? Which
Mhm.
is essentially, I think, what your mom was kind of saying. Like, you need to know who you are to understand how to be with yourself, right?
Right.
And they don't take the time to do that. So
Mhm.
if you don't take the time to be with yourself, to learn who you are, to understand what you like, to pay attention to things you don't like,
Mhm.
then it's going to be very difficult for you to have this, fulfillment, as you're saying,
Mhm.
like find
Mhm.
fulfillment in your life. Like, you really almost have to start with the ground zero of
Mhm.
you.
Who are you? And what do you like?
Who are you and what do you want? Like
Mhm.
those, if you, just like you say, you ask people, like, what is happy, what is
Mhm.
happiness to you? They have no answer. I bet if you ask them, what do you want? They would have the same answer. No
But
answer.
you know what? If you don't know what you like, you don't really know what you want,
Yeah.
right?
Because they'll say things like, "I wanna
Mhm.
be happy. I wanna be rich."
Mhm.
What does that mean, right?
Mhm.
Like, that doesn't mean anything. My definition of "I want to be rich" could be, I want, to be able to have my own time and not
Mhm.
worry about where I'm going, what I'm doing, and I have enough money to, like, take care of that. Like, that could be
Right.
rich for me.
Mhm.
Somebody else might say rich to me is $10 million and my own island somewhere,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Like, rich is relative. And I
Mhm.
don't even know that people know, if they would say rich, they're just like, money. I just want money. Well, how much
Mhm.
money? How much money? Like, and
Yeah.
what are you gonna do with this money? And how is this money going to add to your happiness, your fulfillment, your joy, and that kind of
Mhm.
thing? And I don't think they spend enough time thinking about it to even know how
Mhm.
to get to what it is that they desire really in life. And I think sometimes
Mhm.
people don't have desires. Back to your point, it's like,
Well, I think that you don't have desires because you haven't started at ground zero,
yeah,
right? See, when my mother used to say you have to keep your own company, that was you're not going anywhere today. You want to go to the mall, go by yourself.
right.
You need to have time to
You're gonna
think.
be
You need
alone,
to.
right?
Are you going to go to movies? Okay, go to the movies, and I want you to come back and tell me if you liked it. How did
Mm,
it feel? Take yourself to dinner. You know, so all that time that initially she made me do, right, became something I absolutely loved, right? There were times where someone is like, "Where you going?" I'm like, "I'm going home," but I really wouldn't be going home, but I really wanted that space
You
to
didn't want
myself.
to be with them, right? You wanted to
Right.
be
I just
by
wanted
yourself.
to be by myself, you know, where I don't have to talk. I could just think. I could listen to my music. I could listen. Well, now, I listen to books, but I did the same thing with the boys, and one of the highlights of, I would say for me, is when my son, my oldest, my brother rented him a car when he graduated. No, when he turned 21, and he said, "I'm going to Albany for the weekend by myself." And I
Mm,
was like, "What?" And he did, and he mapped it out. He got a hotel room. He went to all these different touristy locations. He found all these restaurants, and he was so happy, like really, really happy to just be alone, you
yeah.
know. So it's something that I feel like we all need, because without it, we're too heavily reliant on someone else to give us what we need to be able to give ourselves.
Hmm. No, that's beautiful. I
Mhm,
love that he did
mhm,
that. And he
yeah,
was okay, with being by himself,
mhm,
because there's women our age I
mhm,
know
mhm,
who don't go anywhere by themselves. They're like,
mhm,
"Oh my gosh, I lived abroad, so I
mhm,
was by myself a lot, until I
yeah,
met people, and I would go places alone. I would go
mhm,
to dinner alone. I would go to movies alone." And there was one person in particular that's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how
mhm,
you go out by yourself. I don't know how you go to dinner alone." Like, I need to eat. I mean, I don't
right,
understand. Like, how
mhm,
how is it that you've gotten to this age and you are that uncomfortable with yourself?
mhm. I think it's easy to do though,
You
because
do.
when you really think about it, most of your time is with someone, right? Like when you're a child, it may be with your parents, right, or your siblings, and then let's say you go from your house with your parents and your siblings to the house with your partner,
Mhm,
right? So now most of the stuff that you're doing is with them. You might go to the grocery store or the Target or something like that. So you may run errands, but you don't know how to enjoy your time by yourself, right?
mhm,
If you have children, then you're with the kids. Like a lot of people just get lost in life and the routine, and they don't carve it out. And that's why that's one of the things I'm most thankful for, that my mother made me do and preached to me like repeatedly, is to keep my own company and to
mhm.
try new things, because
I
I think it
also
was
think
life changing.
Yeah, yeah. I also think too that people don't like themselves.
Mhm,
They don't
mhm,
like themselves. We always, "Oh, self-love," we always preaching, "Oh, self-love, da, da, da."
mhm,
I don't you To get to love, you at least have to like yourself.
right.
And I feel that sometimes also the challenge with I feel like more women than men really
Mhm,
is that we don't like ourselves. So
mhm,
that could be part of it as well. It's like, why would I want to go and sit by myself to do what? You know what I mean? Because now I'm now alone, like you said, with my thoughts. Whereas
mhm,
before I'm surrounded by people, I can distract myself, I can talk about them, talk with them, people watching, all of this is kind of external.
mhm,
If you're by yourself, you really are alone with your thoughts.
mhm,
And lots of times the way people are thinking is
mhm,
not good about themselves.
right.
So they don't even want to sit there, and then now, you're hearing all of these things, telling yourself all of these things, and probably spiraling like, why am I even out? Nobody likes me. That's the only reason I'm here. Nobody would go out with me anyway. And they
Mhm,
never even decided to like themselves,
mhm.
love themselves enough to, like, as you said, just be with yourself and be your
Well, I
own.
think that comes from introspection, right? And I think a lot of the times people run from that because it's hard and it can hurt. And I think that Most people do the easy, right? The easy is where it's at for them.
Yeah.
Comfortability, this makes me happy, and that's it, right? But when you're introspective, you start asking yourself, why?
Yeah.
Why can't I? Why does this make me? When you start asking yourself those questions and you say to yourself, I can't be alone because I don't know how to have fun by myself. Instead of delving into that and saying, what do I need to do to get past this point
How
and
to do
become better?
that. Hmm.
It's, I just don't want to be by myself no more. I'll go with other people,
Hmm.
right? And I think that's where most people lose themselves. So I think the foundational pieces are doing things on your own and staying introspective.
Hmm.
Not introspective until you get what you want. Introspective, period. Like that's my love is the shower. Like I'm always in the shower anyway. But that's what I do when I'm in there. I put my music on and that's where I unwind and I think things through. I'm like, okay, what do I have to do? How did today feel? What happened today? Oh, I didn't like that, but why didn't I like that? That you can find a space to just do what you need to do for yourself, even if that's in the shower. Like,
Yeah.
and it started for me in the shower because when the kids were little, they're like, mommy, mommy, every second. So you have to have that
Yeah. You can
space
only hide in
for
the
yourself.
bathroom. That was it. That's it.
Yeah, right. And so they start opening the door, right? But
Right, they still might come in there, but it's kind of like, well, if she's in there, I know she'll be out. I
right.
can't
So,
say so.
yeah. So I think that's what it is. I think sometimes, life will happen and it'll build up over time, right? Like negative things will happen. You're more prone to the negative anyway. So your brain is wired to go easy and negative. So if you don't reroute it, like I always tell my anyone, pretty much the kids, my friends, whoever, your brain is your hard drive. Like it's gonna go where you take it. If you're only negative talking, then you're only bringing that to yourself and not just the manifestation part, but you're going to go where you think, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
One of the things that I love, obviously,
Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I don't know what happened. It sounds like you like hit something and then the sound just went out. Okay. Oh yeah,
let
I
me
can
see.
hear it now. I hear it
Let's
now.
see. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, good. I don't know what happened. This is Cohen's. These are his headphones. Um, I forgot what I was saying. What was I saying? I don't even.
You were saying like something about your brain is your hard
Oh,
drive and
yeah.
your thoughts.
So it's negative self-talk, right?
Yeah.
Like we're negative self-talk and it's wired to go easy. So those two things, you have to reroute them, right? So
Mhm.
if you're doing things and you're talking negative about yourself, then talk to yourself and say, that's not true. I am good at this because I did this. Like you have to literally program it. One of these books that I read one time, my friend told me about. I read it when I was 19 and it was like life changing. It's called The Game of Life. And
Mhm.
it's pretty much about how you think and what you say, that
Mhm.
you bring all that stuff to you. So I think perspective is everything, being introspective and knowing yourself. Like once you know yourself, then you can go external with what makes you happy, but it has to start
Mhm.
inside.
It does. I agree. Would you say that you are a person who is like positive, optimistic in general, or is that something that you had to work at?
No, I was raised with it, right? Um, Again, my mother, her thing was, first of all, no one has to give you anything, so you better be grateful, right? That was her thing. So gratitude was always something that
Mhm.
was instilled in me. And the other thing was, if you think you have it bad, watch the news, right? There's
Mhm.
always something to be grateful for. There's always something for you to see the positive in your life. It could always be worse.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely optimistic. And even when I go through challenges, I know that they won't last,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, I'm this too shall pass is like my mantra anyway. Because although I may have to work through things to get to where I need to be, I also know that I'll get there. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter how long it's gonna take me and what the route is, I'm gonna get there. And I always say, like, it doesn't matter how I get there. I could go through it, around it, or over it, but I am gonna get there. So
Mhm.
that's in all aspects of my life,
Mhm.
all aspects.
Because, and I asked that because you were talking about like being introspective,
Mhm,
and I believe that sometimes the challenge people have with being introspective is
mhm,
they are very critical
mhm,
of themselves and negative.
mhm,
That's why I asked you, like, where did you get this kind of positive, sort of optimistic, like, way of life and looking at life? Because if you don't create that or cultivate it in some kind of
mhm,
way, as you said, your mom is really what kind of helped you cultivate it, because that's how she was, and she, had these practices of gratitude and making sure that you are getting to know who you are and spending time with yourself. And some people, they never had that, right? They don't
mhm,
have these kinds of influences, and it's just difficult for them to see themselves in this positive light.
mhm,
And that is, like you said, where you really have to go. You really have to get to who you are,
mhm,
and knowing that you are a great person, a beautiful person, all of those things, right?
mhm,
That will hopefully lead you to paying more attention to the positive aspects.
mhm,
Being grateful for your life, being grateful for the things that you have is always a something I do as well. Like
mhm,
I have a gratitude practice, and
mhm.
it sounds like we're getting to another question.
Wait, let me add something about the cultivating, because although it was ingrained in me,
Yeah.
I think you cultivate it by, especially us, right? Because we're older now, we've been through a lot of experiences and stuff. Um, you ask yourself, is the way is how I've been doing it working for me, right? How
Mm,
do I feel when I talk to myself this way? And what am I willing to do to change that,
mhm,
right? Sometimes it's as simple as therapy, right? Sometimes it's literally watching more motivational speakers or self-help, because I'm definitely an advocate for therapy, because I feel like you said previously and we discussed that so many times, like, we have so much on us that we have nowhere to vent, to
right.
flush it out. And I think sometimes you have friends who think the definition of being your friend is going along with what you're saying, instead
Yeah.
of telling you the actual truth that will help you grow. So
Mhm,
if your goal is to grow and to change the dynamic of your life, then it starts with, how am I supposed to do that? And seek the resources, whatever they are, that you need to do better.
mhm. Yep. I absolutely agree with that. There's no shame in therapy.
Mhm,
There's no shame in counseling. There's no shame in getting the support that you need.
mhm,
Um, I do believe that older generations, and especially older generations, and then also, African Americans, Black people,
mhm,
have always kind of shunned therapy as a
mhm,
thing for crazy people
mhm,
or something for people who can't get their life together.
mhm,
And that's not true. That's not what it's
mhm,
about, right? And especially now, as you say, when we have so many pressures, so many stresses,
mhm.
you can't always work it all out on your own. You can't always
Sometimes you
figure
don't
it out.
know what to work out,
Yeah,
right?
right,
And
right.
a
Even if
lot of,
you
yeah.
have a baseline, like
Mhm,
we're saying, many people don't even have a baseline from a place to even start to
yeah.
figure out how to work out anything. You know what I mean? Like how to even
Mhm,
get one little clue about who they are, or they're not aware. Because what I keep hearing you say is you have a strong awareness
mhm,
of who you are,
mhm,
and you're constantly focused on building that awareness of yourself and
mhm,
paying attention when, like, catching yourself to say, I don't like how that feels. I
mhm,
don't like how I'm thinking about that.
mhm,
I'm not willing to do that. Like, and what is it that who do I want to become? Who do I want to be? Like, how can I get to the person that I
mhm,
really want to be?
mhm,
And that awareness doesn't exist for people, but
mhm,
some people. And
right,
that is also a place you have to go if you want to understand how to be happier. You have to start with awareness to say, okay, something is not right here.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I'm not I'm not feeling good. I'm not trusting this. I'm not believing something that I should be believing or someone told me to believe, and understanding like how you kind of move through that. They
Right.
don't really have the awareness to
They
even.
don't. They don't. But you also have to be willing to do the work, because even when you become aware, it's how much are you willing to do to change that dynamic, right?
So what
Because
do
some.
you do then when you are not feeling like your best?
Mhm.
Your maybe it's not your best. Maybe I'm not saying, you're
Yeah.
always running around skipping through tulips and stuff like this. But I'm saying when you're not like floating on a cloud or anything all
Mhm.
the time best, but you have a place where you feel good, right? You're like, I'm
Mhm.
feeling good today. Today's a good day or
Mhm.
whatever. And then you might have days where you're like, oh my God, today's the best day ever. This happened,
Mhm.
that happened, and you might be floating on a cloud. But if you're not even getting up to kind of your baseline of like, this is a good day, what
Mhm.
what do you do to get to that place?
You mean overall or that specific day? Like you're having a bad day or
Maybe you're
overall?
having a bad day.
If you're having a bad day, I think it always starts with what do you like? What makes you feel better when you're in those moments?
Mhm.
Depending on what kind of bad day, it may just be me listening to a Summer Walker album or going back to an Adele album or putting on a playlist and relaxing, right? Um, if it was really bad, I might need TD Jakes in my life or some
Mhm.
gospel, right?
Right.
Because my thoughts are going dark. So I need to bring it back to the light. So
Mhm.
it really depends on what it is that makes you feel better, right? What it is that's going to pull you out of that hole. And once you really learn yourself, you'll know whether you need a Summer Walker album or you need a TD Jakes, right? So once you'll learn that today maybe is a reality TV day. Because for me, reality TV is like turn off the brain. You don't have to think about anything. Just put it on, watch these crazy people and laugh, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's comedy. Like my friend recently lost her brother, and I call her every day, like, "How you doing? What you doing?" I'm like, "All right, put on a comedy show today. Put on something you want to see that's gonna make you laugh."
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to learn what brings you out of your hole, right? And it, like I said, it could be something as simple as a movie,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Just to take your mind off of it and give you the space to relax before you think it all through,
Mhm.
before you have to pick yourself up again and get back to it in some form.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I think music and
Mm.
distraction, like entertainment for
Right,
sure, are
right.
definitely ways to move you to a new place. And
Mhm,
music too, I there's something about music, I think,
mhm,
that can just take you like physically even like you might be
mhm,
dancing or jumping around or whatever
mhm.
that can like literally just take you from like you said a not so great place to like wow, you know.
It activates all sides of the brain at once,
Yeah.
right? So it's like even when you're
There's a
singing.
science to it. Is that what
Yeah, it is. Uh-huh. It's
you're
like it's very interesting. I love it, and I love all genres, right? So let's say you broke up with your boyfriend and you go put on some blues or something or some song, like put on some Mary, and you like in there, you like, I'm gonna get back to it. I'm gorgeous, whatever. It's basically you can pick a album or a song for whatever you're feeling, like
Mhm,
whatever you're feeling. And I think it validates you and it helps you remember who you are at the same time, right?
mhm, mhm.
So it's never like, oh, I'm so mad he hurt me. Now I'm gonna go kill myself. It's more like he left me, but I'm gonna find someone else or whatever. It's also motivating. It's validating, motivating all at the same time.
Yeah, hopefully you're picking those kind of songs. You aren't picking those like sad, depressing, suicidal songs. Well, I guess it depends on where you are, right? Some people
Sometimes you could pick
just
sad.
wanna stay sad, right?
Well, sometimes you could pick sad to feel validated, right? Because
Mhm,
someone else went through what you've gone through,
mhm,
you know? So that's what it is. Is sometimes that validation makes you feel like you're not alone. And that brings even more depression, when you feel like this is only happening to you. This
mhm.
is why me, why he left me. I was good to him. And then you put on 500 songs and everybody got left at some point, you
Right.
know? So you're like, okay, maybe it's not me, maybe it was him. So
Right. That could bring you some support as
yeah,
well if you're
yeah,
looking at it kinda in the right way.
right.
Oh, Tony has
Mhm.
joined us. He said, "Very true."
Hi,
Look,
Tony.
see? Very true, though. That's what he said. Look at that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just realized I can show, like, comments. That is so
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
that's cute.
Yeah, this
Mhm.
is fun. This is fun.
Mm.
Okay, so we talked about do you have your gratitude practice? So do
Mhm.
you have would you call it a gratitude practice, or are you just constantly reminding yourself of reasons to be grateful?
Oh,
Or
I do that, yeah.
some people, they write it down, they
Mhm.
have a gratitude journal or something like
Mhm.
that. Do you
No, I'm constantly reminding myself, like, of reasons to be thankful, and one of the things that I always do is I'll reroute my thinking, right?
Mhm,
Learned this from my mother as well. If something bad happens, you think of what could have made that situation worse,
mm,
right? And then you'll say, okay, I'm going to overcome this, but damn, if this would have happened, it would have been significantly worse. So
mm,
once you ground yourself in that peace, then you realize that it's not as bad as it could have been.
mm,
Not that it isn't bad, but it's not as bad as it could have been,
mm,
right? So
mhm,
that's my perspective. But I also have a gratitude journal because one of my friends told me about it, and he's like, you should try it." And I love it because it just pops up on my phone. It's like 2.99 or something, and it comes and it has like a little prompt, and it'll say, "How was yesterday's?" It was something like, "Who made you smile today?" So
mm,
it kinda is just like a guide. Just like with meditation, I do meditation as well. I like guided meditation because
mhm,
with guided meditation, the person is teaching me at the same time, which I like to learn everything all the time anyway. So
mm,
at the same time, he's guiding me in the meditation, he's also explaining why this meditation is going to help me, right?
mhm,
So
mhm.
sometimes that helps as well. But definitely I don't usually have to write it down, but I like that little app. I think it's called Gratitude Journal. I think it's like a little heart or something, and I
Mhm.
think that's very helpful. But overall, I ground myself in it continuously.
Yeah, I would say that too. I was talking to another woman
Mhm,
and we were talking about gratitude and she was saying, "Oh, yeah, I know. I feel like I should write it down. I just don't really think about it, to remember to write it and that kind of thing." And I'm like you, like you don't have to write it. You can just
mhm,
think about it. You can just
mhm,
recall it, you could just for me, when I get up in the morning, I think of what I'm grateful for.
mhm,
Just in
mhm,
the morning, just when I wake up. Like I don't
mhm,
necessarily write things down. Sometimes I
mhm,
do, sometimes I'll
mhm,
write it's good to write a gratitude list.
mhm,
And I actually just wrote a list the other day about myself. I was listening to some podcast, one of
mhm,
these podcasts about being being more, self-love and
mhm,
appreciation, that kind of thing. And it was like, write down reasons why you love yourself. Because
mhm,
lots of times I find when I'm thinking about gratitude, I'm thinking of like, it's more like nature, even,
mhm,
like, oh, I'm, so glad the sun is shining, I'm so grateful to have a beautiful home.
mhm,
I don't say like, I'm grateful because I have a positive attitude. You know what I mean? Like, I don't sit and think about things like that.
I
But
like that.
yeah, but actually making a list of why you actually do love yourself,
Mhm,
a great way of boosting really just again what we were talking about, our awareness of who we are, right?
mhm,
Getting to know who we are and being okay with like appreciating ourselves, right?
right,
It doesn't always have to be something external you're appreciating. It's like, yeah, why
mhm,
why do I love myself? What
mhm,
what do I like about myself? What do I
mhm,
appreciate about myself? What it's because lots of times we're so critical. We just talk about what's going wrong, what's bad. I need to lose 10 pounds. I need to stop eating this. I need to color my hair. I need, it's all so critical, critical, critical. I need to not be so loud. I need to not be
Mhm.
it's like, no, stop that. Like, how
Yeah.
about you actually be grateful for you and all the great
Mhm.
that you
See,
are?
when you said that, I don't do that. There's always something that I'm like,
I don't think
okay.
most people do. Like I said, when I
Yeah,
heard it, I was like, I like this. I'm like, right
yeah,
this.
no, I love that. No, I wrote it down because I'm definitely doing that, right?
Yeah.
But even with the critical part, I look at it more as what do I need to work on? It's not so much that I'm gonna beat myself up about it. Okay, I can be snippy with this. Okay, I need to stop that. I need to work on that. Okay, the next time I'm gonna do this so I don't say this first, right? So
Mhm,
sometimes it's just rerouting yourself and
mhm.
saying, this is the one thing I'm gonna work on for a while to create a better habit.
Right,
Right?
right.
Because you don't have to, like, look at all the aspects that you have to work on because that's naturally gonna overwhelm you, and
Yes,
once you have too many things to do, then you're gonna be filled with anxiety and do nothing,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
sometimes I think it's better for you to say, "Okay, I need to do this, but in the interim, I'm gonna work on this one thing right now." You
right.
know? You can write a list of things you want to do, but take it easy, like, give yourself the grace and the space to get to it. It doesn't mean it has to happen overnight. It's not a sprint. You'll get there. You just gotta
Yeah,
keep
it's not
working.
gonna happen. It's not gonna happen overnight, and I
Mhm,
would even say it's not about being critical of yourself.
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
I think it's 2 things. Like, that practice, I like. I like
mhm.
revisiting. It's 2 things I like to do. Well, now that I'm adding that to the other thing.
Right. Okay.
Now it's, thinking about, all the things you love about yourself, but
Mhm,
also thinking about all of the ways that you have been able to, um, things you've been able to accomplish,
mm,
right? Because the other challenge, um, sometimes I have with myself is, especially if I have something new that I'm doing, right?
mhm,
Let's just say I'm starting a new job, right? I'm
mhm,
starting a new job and people get anxious and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm starting a new job. I don't know anybody here. What if nobody likes me? What if it doesn't, go well? And if you actually really take inventory of your life and you look back and say, okay, what happened the last time I started a new job?
mhm,
Did I not make any friends? Did I not meet
mhm,
anybody? Did
mhm,
people really hate me? It's like going back to say, okay, what is the proof that you have in your life that that is not going to be the case? It's similar to
mhm,
something you said about how your mom said, like, to change how you think, but
mhm.
it's a little bit different. So
Right,
I think she said something like you think, "How could it have been worse?" But in
right.
this case, it's, "No, how did I overcome something like that already?" Right?
Mhm,
Instead of saying, "Oh, this is gonna be this, so terrible." It's like, "Why would it be terrible this time?" If you
yeah,
actually think back, that's never happened, right? Like,
mhm,
it's never been the case where you started a new job. For some people, I mean, sure, some
right,
people may be difficult to get along with, and that's something that they need to work on.
right,
But many times the things that we're playing in our head aren't even true. We just make
right.
them up.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
literally
fear.
just make them up.
Yeah,
So sometimes it's up to us to go back to, who we've been and say,
mhm,
"Oh, well, that's actually not true. That's actually not
mhm,
really what happens. That's actually not who I am. That's not
mhm,
what happens. What happens is one of my best friends I met at work,
mhm,
what happens is, I was, got an award for blah, 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 all of these great things that I've
mhm.
done. And we tend to like forget that kind of stuff.
I'm in agreement. And sometimes I feel like I like that as well, because you like you said, you're looking for the evidence to
Yep. You're
support the
looking for
negative
evidence
thinking.
to support. Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, again, everything with me is a learning curve of experience and exposure, right? It's all
Mm-hmm.
gonna be new, and I'm gonna learn something from this new experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you ask yourself, why do I want this new job? What is this new job going to give me?
Mm-hmm.
How is it going to help me with my future? Is it
Yep.
gonna make me make more money so I have a better pension? I don't know. Whatever, there's a reason that you're taking that job. And once you analyze what it means to you and what's important, then all the other stuff isn't as important, right? And you deal with that as it comes, but you
Mhm.
stay grounded in the fact that it's positive, or you wouldn't be taking it,
Right. Yeah.
and it's
No,
beneficial,
definitely
right?
reframing your
Mhm,
thinking is
mhm,
super important in
right,
many areas, like in
mhm,
small areas and big areas. So when I had that example of the job, like that's reframing, like
mhm,
how you think about yourself in a new
mhm,
job, right?
yeah,
But it could be
mhm,
the same thing with the belief that you might have about the world,
right,
right? You might
mhm,
have a belief that, all people are out to get you,
mhm,
or you may have a belief that you know men can't be trusted, right?
mhm,
Like you may have, but as what you're saying is, okay, what if you actually reframe that? Or you
mhm,
may have a belief that you may think, I hate this job and this job is awful and it's always going to be terrible, right?
mhm,
Instead of reframing it to say, this job provides a
mhm,
home for my family, right?
mhm,
This job allows me to pay my cable bill and watch all the great shows that I
mhm,
watch. This job allows me to take fabulous vacations, right? It's about
mhm,
how you actually look at some things that can feel not good, or can feel
mhm,
negative, or can feel like they're weighing you down.
mhm,
But like you said, you just reframe how you
mhm.
look at it and change
Yeah,
it.
because that's one of my favorite words. It's also a counseling term. Like reframing is what leads to the positive attitude,
Hmm.
perspective. And one of the quotes that I have in my room is gratitude leads to joy, right? So when you reframe everything from a gracious place of gratitude, and you remind yourself why it's beneficial to you, then that's when you feel more fulfilled and happy with your accomplishments, not looking at what could go wrong, but what could go right.
Hmm. Hmm.
You
Absolutely. I love it.
know?
We are at 57 minutes, Tamara.
Mhm.
See how I said,
Yeah.
oh, I tried to say 30 to 40, and that
Yeah.
was six. And that was 6 to 30 to 40. It usually goes on to
Mhm.
like an
Mhm.
hour or more.
Mhm.
But I think it's good
Mhm.
because we are, sharing
Mhm.
information and things that other women can use for themselves,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Even just this whole discussion about reframing,
Mhm.
it's not a difficult thing to do.
Right.
I was actually on another talk with someone else, and we were talking about shoulding.
Mhm. Mhm.
Shoulding, how people are like, I should do this, I should do this, and she was saying, I should do this, I should do that, I should do this, I should do that. And obviously, if you're saying you should, it's because you really don't want to do it, right? If you wanted to do it, you just do it. It wouldn't be I should. It's just you do
Mhm.
it and it would be done.
Mhm.
So if you are shoulding on something,
Mhm.
it's because there's some conflict somewhere.
Mhm.
And what her thing was, I think, was had to do with like house cleaning or something. Like she
Mhm.
just wasn't interested in house cleaning, or she didn't
Mhm.
have the time to devote to the to cleaning the house like the way she wanted.
I
And
get
she was
that part.
feeling like guilty about that, right?
Mhm.
She's like, because I know I should want to clean the house, and I know I should want to do these things, I know I should want to do that stuff. And one of the things we talked about was similar. It was kind of like, well, reframing it. Well,
Mhm.
and asking yourself, like, why do you think you should do that?
Mhm. Mhm.
Why? And why are you having like negative feelings about it? Right? Because there's
Mhm.
plenty of people who don't clean anything and they have no feelings. They're
Right.
like, I'm not cleaning
Right.
it.
They're like, "Oh, well."
It
Right.
is what it is. Somebody else will do it. But for her, there was this like anxiousness or anxiety or
Mhm.
upset. Like, I know I should be doing it. I know I should. And like you said, it sometimes just goes back to, well, where did that come from, that you had to
Mhm.
be the one to do the cleaning and that kind of
Mhm.
thing? And it
Mhm.
came from, her parents, or, her upbringing, where it was something that everyone had to do, but
Mhm.
it wasn't anything she ever really liked to do.
Right.
But she still felt like it was something she was supposed to be doing because
Mhm.
that was like what she was taught to do. And
Mhm.
it was kind of like, well, what if you change that to a different belief that you actually could believe in, right?
Mhm.
Because we all want clean clothes, right?
Right.
But doesn't mean you have to be the one to clean them, does
Yeah,
it?
but see, the other thing is that's a word that I very rarely use
Should.
because should. because what it
Because
does
you're aware and evolved.
right? Because it puts like this undue pressure on you,
It
right?
does. It
And it's
does.
like
It
it's
does.
heavier.
It
It
is.
doesn't allow you to be your best self because you're just constantly thinking of what you are supposed to be doing. I use it. I need to. I
Mm,
want to. I need to. I will, like when I get to it, right? But I'm not going to put that heaviness on myself because then I'm going to get filled with anxiety, stress, aggravation, and all that kind of stuff, which you don't really have to do,
right.
right? You
Mhm.
just have to figure out how to get it done, and it's not going to kill you, and it's not life or death. You'll be fine.
Right.
So,
Right. And that's what I was saying to her. Like,
mhm,
because you don't feel you're the one that has to do it, doesn't mean you don't
mhm,
think it's important to get it done.
right,
Those aren't the same things,
right.
right? You're kind of tying them together. Like, oh,
Mhm.
if I don't do it, then it means that I don't care about
Right.
dirty clothes or whatever. It's like, no,
Mhm.
that's not what that means at all.
I agree with you. It's not.
To
It's
kind of separate
right.
that.
And it's time. That's the one thing you cannot make up is time,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes you just don't have time. It depends on what else you have going on, you
Mhm.
know? So you just have to figure it out and get to it when you can. But I don't feel like you have it's not life or death. It's
Well, it brings us, I
no.
think, back full circle to what we were saying about in the beginning about like work-life balance that we
Mhm.
have as women who are
Mhm.
working, who have families, who have, maybe you don't even have a family. Maybe you just have a full life. Maybe you
Right.
volunteer. Maybe you have a lot of outside interests.
Mhm.
Maybe you have a lot of hobbies, or, you spend a lot of time with friends and family and things of that nature. And it's about figuring out, okay, although I know there's, these things that need to be done. And when my parents were younger, or my parents were my age, my mom didn't have a job maybe she didn't have a job that she worked, or maybe she had a job that she ended when she left, right? Many
Mhm.
times people come home and they're like still working, right? So
Mhm.
you also have to be paying attention to like, where did that thought come from, like that belief come from? And it
Mhm.
might have been true for that time or that person because
Mhm.
maybe they had time to devote to
Right.
cooking and cleaning and,
Right.
all of the things, where
Mhm.
you're like, no, now I have all kinds of stuff to do.
Absolutely.
And
And that's one of the things like I always say is that sometimes it's the traditional role
yeah,
that's being placed on you, right? And then
mhm,
if you have a spouse or a boyfriend or whatever, they have that mindset too, but they're not playing a traditional role, but you still must play it,
you still are
right?
playing it.
So
Mhm.
now you may pay half the bills or whatever, and then you're supposed to take care of the house, the kids, the this and that. So you're doing like 150 and they're doing like 50. Like, no.
Mhm.
It has to have a balance there because if we're going to be partners, then we have to be partners in all aspects. It can't be partners in only what's beneficial. So sometimes it's the relationship roles that are misguided even. Some
Yeah, because like we said, the women's roles have changed in some
Mhm,
aspects,
mhm.
but not in others,
Right.
right? They have changed as far as, oh, it's fine for us to be out working now.
Mhm.
It's fine
Right.
for us, to be
Mhm.
out making money now.
Mhm.
Maybe not so much, right? That
Mhm.
men, depending on the man, they might, bother their ego or what have
Right.
you. But it's
Mhm.
fine, like to do those things. But when it comes to more like domestic roles, those
Mhm.
haven't been revisited. Those
Right.
haven't really been reviewed. Nobody
Mhm.
is looking to say, oh, that can change. But
Mhm.
I think that can too, right?
Oh,
Like
I
that.
think it needs to. I
And
think it needs to because it's unrealistic.
yeah, that can change too, and that's also part of the reason why we're working. I
Mhm.
think we sometimes as women put that pressure on ourselves too. We don't even consider, "Oh, well, wait a second. I
Mhm.
am working and bringing in more money into the household, so maybe I can use this money to take something off of my plate. I can
Right.
use this money to relieve me of some chore, that
Mhm.
I don't have to do or want to do, whatever, it might
Right.
be." But
Mhm.
we've just never looked at it that way because we feel like, "Oh, we have to be doing all of the stuff."
Yeah. No.
And you don't.
No, you
You
can't,
can't.
right? And
Right,
that's
that's
the
what he
thing.
said. You don't and
You
you can't.
can't.
You
Because
don't.
if you put that should on yourself, then now you're miserable. You're
Yeah.
completely miserable and you never ever feel enough. Ever.
Nope. Nope.
And
Nope.
yeah, I can't torture myself that way. I won't
No.
either.
No. No. Of
I,
course.
I yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair. And I think sometimes, like one of my friends told me one time, she's like, you have to look at your life for where you are right now. If you're running around and you're doing all this stuff, then how are you supposed to be in two places at once?
Mhm.
Right? So
Mhm.
you have to be grounded in your own reality and what your life looks like, not societal expectations and not any role that they think you're supposed to play.
Yep, yep. But I think that takes also, but besides self-awareness, it also takes courage sometimes
Mhm,
because you are kind of stepping out of, like you said, these traditional roles and
mhm,
boxes that
mhm,
people see you in. And
mhm,
it's not easy all the time because now people are like, oh, you don't do that. Well, what are you doing?
mhm, mhm,
And people allow, others to kind of
mhm.
dictate like how they should be moving through their life. And that's not
Yeah, I
great.
think the more comfortable you become with yourself, the more introspective, the more you know who you are and what you actually want, you will put those roles and expectations where they belong, away from you, right? Um,
He said
because to
away
be honest, yes, because to be honest, my behavior is aligned with my individual beliefs. That's what they're aligned with. It's not what someone else expects of me, what the world expects of me. It's what do I want for me.
Well, we already know that you are aware and that you are always introspective and always focusing on where, what Tamara needs and where, and that's a great thing. Like
Mhm.
that's what we want to, tell women that they
Yeah.
also need to be paying attention to
Mhm.
because if you don't do it, nobody else is, right? Like
Nope.
you gotta actually
Yep.
start paying attention and focus on yourself
And
to
to be honest, to have healthy relationships, you have to teach people how to treat you. And if you don't know how to treat you, how are you
yeah,
going to
you
teach
got to start with
someone else?
yourself, right?
Mhm.
You have to
Yep.
start with how am I treating me? How am
Yep.
I treating me? How am
Mhm.
I loving me
Mhm.
before you can even worry about what's going on out there with
Mhm.
everybody else?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Mm.
yes, yay
Yay.
as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Very
We need to have you teach like an empowerment lesson for women. Like these are the things you need to be doing.
Hey, I'll do it because that I love that because I told you to ask more questions. You'll be surprised at how much people don't know, right?
Yeah.
Just like the simple things, and that's what makes it so easy for them to conform to what others want of them and just be so super unhappy at the same time. Like one of the things is I always feel like when you're on your deathbed, you need to know that you gave it a fair run. Like you did everything you could to live the life you wanted, to carve it out the way you wanted, and feel like you did your part, before your time is up, right? I don't want to be in somewhere like, oh, I wish I would have gone to a winery. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to say, I
Oh
want
yeah.
to do this. I did this. I like opera. I like country music. I like whatever it is that my interest is. And like I tell the boys sometimes when we're talking, you don't have to know 100% what you want. You just have to know what you're interested in. And if
Mhm.
you're interested in it, you sample it. If it works, then that's something you add to your list of things you like. If you don't like it, then you don't have to do it again.
Mhm.
But if you're interested in it, if it looks fun, try it.
Yeah, like follow your
Mhm.
fun.
Mhm.
Follow your interests. Like that is going to lead you only to good places,
I
right?
agree.
Absolutely
Mhm.
following your fun.
Mhm.
So you said something else, but I can't remember what it was. I was gonna comment on, but it's okay. But yeah,
Mhm.
following your fun.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I like that, following your fun.
Yeah, follow
Mhm.
your fun. That's I mean,
Mhm.
you're never going to I'm not talking about like reckless, dangerous fun. I'm talking
Yeah.
about things that really, like you said, they just light you up. It's like,
Mhm.
what is that? Because
Mhm.
again, back to your getting to know who you are.
Mhm.
What is it about that thing that
Mhm.
makes me feel so good? What is it about that thing that I really enjoy? I
Mhm.
know you have a son that plays basketball.
Mhm.
Well, is it the basketball that he likes? Is it the competition? Is
Mhm.
it, the exertion? Is it
Mhm.
running around? Is it like the coaching and encouraging other people?
Mhm.
But to your point, we don't really spend enough time doing that. And that is really where it all has to begin. Like you really have to spend time with yourself, learning yourself,
Mhm.
understanding yourself, and move on, from
Mhm.
there, adding more things, hopefully, that you learn about
Mhm.
yourself, you enjoy,
Mhm.
and that you can use to build intentionally. Because that
Mhm.
goes back to also where this show started.
Mhm.
Is I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was, I guess, not having a good day.
Mhm.
And she was saying how some people are just like miserable people, and
Mhm.
they don't want to be happy. They like to suffer. They like to complain. They just don't want, good things for themselves. And I was like, I don't believe that is true for most people.
Mhm.
I think if people are that way, it's because they don't know anything else, right? Or they've kind of been taught that that's just the way it is.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
don't truly people come to this world wanting to be, sad, depressed, unhappy,
I
suffering,
don't,
miserable.
yeah, I don't think that they do, but I think sometimes attention is attention, right? Or you get comfortable in
Yeah,
positions in your life, right? And sometimes you're comfortable in chaos. Sometimes you're comfortable in drama. So I think it becomes what a person is used to and what makes them feel something, right? If you don't really know yourself and you're more comfortable complaining because now you have people calling you and they're like, "Oh, you okay?" Then that's attention. Some people sympathy look for sympathy, you
yeah,
know. So
that's
it really
they're
comes,
not suffering.
yeah,
They're actually getting something good, a good feeling out of that
right.
attention.
They are, but at the same time, I think they still
Negative.
unhappy,
Mhm.
right? I
Mhm.
think they're still unhappy, which is why they're constantly looking for that attention or that sympathy, you know? And even when someone is complaining all the time, it can be draining to you, but they're like, "Ooh, she's listening," and that's how they see the world. Everything is wrong. Everything, something could be better. They find no joy in it at all, you know? And to me, that's too draining. I can't. Like that's a lot. Like it's gonna affect my whole world, And obviously, like I said, I'm a nurturer. I unofficially counsel people, but I like to do that with people who I think want to be better. Right? Some people don't. There's a
Yeah,
s-
that's
I
true.
don't know if it's a speech or whatever by Eric Thomas. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yes, I know
Yeah,
who
I
he is,
love him.
motivational
Yeah.
speaker. Mhm.
Yeah, he has a something on one of the albums called Charge, right? And he's talking about people like that draining your energy. And once they drain your energy, now you have less energy to put it where you need to put it for yourself,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
So for a while, I still listen to it, but I listened to it every day for like a year to reframe how I felt I needed to help certain people in my life, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes you give too much of yourself to someone, um, and you don't realize it because you're doing it to be good or to be helpful, but it's taxing to you because instead of me being in the shower thinking about myself, I'm thinking about what I need to do to help this person, et cetera, et cetera. And now you're doing it, you're giving them your all, and they're not giving you much of nothing. It was just a passing moment for them, but meanwhile, you're literally sitting there trying to figure it all out on how you can help them change their entire life, but they don't really want change, you
No,
know?
they
So
don't. Mm-mm.
so to your friend's
Only
points,
give
some
when you
people are.
what you don't have, you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
I mean, I don't know who said it. I wanna say it was like a Leon Levan saying something like,
Mhm.
"You can't give from an empty you have to give from your overflow."
Right.
And sometimes it's hard for us, especially people who are, like you said, natural nurturers, women mostly,
Mhm.
to say no to people, even if we know we're on kind of like our last bit of energy, our last bit of
Mhm.
patience, our last
Mhm.
bit of time. When someone's
Mhm.
asking for more from us, we're like, okay, yeah, well,
Mhm.
we're giving,
Mhm.
we're giving, we're giving. And then we wonder like why we have nothing left for ourselves
Mhm.
because you didn't have anything to really give that person.
Right.
You thought
That's it.
you
Yep.
did, but
True.
you had nothing. Like you have to be, she would say, you have to be full. And then if you're full, then you can give from your overflow. But if you're not full, you can't even think about giving to somebody else.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because now it's just taking away from you, taking away, taking away. And people will take as much as you allow them to take. They'll just
Mhm.
keep taking, taking, taking,
Yep.
taking.
And one of my friends says, um, like emotions and energy, it's contagious. So
Yeah, it's
sometimes you're thinking you're helping, but they're literally putting it on you and you don't even realize it. You
mm-hmm,
know, so you might be on the phone listening to their horrible life story for 2 hours, and then you get off the phone and you're drained, and now you're antsy.
hmm.
So they put it on you unknowingly. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
of one of the best things I learned in my program, my graduate school program, one of my professors said, "You feel for someone, not with them." Right? And it literally changed the way you see being empathetic. When you look at it that way, it's because I'm helping you, but I'm not taking on your problem. You
Mm-hmm,
know, and
mm-hmm.
I think that's important also.
Yeah, because you have some people who are empaths, right?
Mhm.
So empaths are taking on, right?
Mhm.
That's what you're
Mhm.
doing. You're not able to repel. It's like
Right.
that. You're
Mhm.
just taking it in. You're
Mhm.
taking it on. Now you're,
Mhm.
being consumed by all of whatever that negative
Mhm.
stuff that's
Mhm.
happening is.
Right.
And it can work the other way too for positive things. But when
Mhm.
it's negative, that's when it really is detrimental to you, right? And
Mhm.
your spirit and your energy, because now you, like you said, taking it on
Right.
instead of just being kind of shielding it from yourself. Like that's something to figure out how we can practice. Like
Mhm. Mhm.
allow it to like bounce off of you almost is what
Mhm.
your professor is saying.
Yes.
Don't take it in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hear that. You can
Mhm.
come back now, you know.
Don't internalize it and make it your problem, you know?
No, because there's definitely, I think, a transfer of energy. I
Mhm.
believe in a transfer of energy for sure.
Mhm.
And sometimes we are not allowing it to like transfer back.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh, and I've said to people like, nope, you're not gonna give that to me. I'm not taking that energy. I'm not taking it. You're gonna keep it over there. Like
Mhm.
seriously, like I have to
Mhm.
consciously say, okay, I know. You gotta
Right.
keep that over there.
Mhm.
Taking that today.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Sometimes I'm like, "Oh, that's
No.
what happened?" Like, "Yeah, okay, let me well, I think you should do this, and I think you should do that. Alright, call me back if you need any help. Talk to you later." Like, no, I gotta get off the phone because I'm having a good day, and that's not gonna help me continue my good day, you
Yeah,
know?
and sometimes you can't talk to people,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
this is something I've been telling my mom because
Mhm.
she's been going through some stressful times as a caretaker,
Mhm.
and she also is a worrier. And
Mhm.
so we have some older family members
Mhm.
that will call her and just lay her out for different things.
Right,
And I had said to her, I said, you don't have to answer that call.
right.
Especially if you might know, yeah, I've done this thing and that person's probably not going to be happy, or they might have
Mhm.
found out about something. And then sometimes people just have a general way of being annoying and nagging anyway, right?
Or
Like,
ungrateful.
yeah, ungrateful, just
Mhm.
feeling like you should be doing more for them, right?
Mhm.
And I said, you actually are the one that's in control of your energy field, right?
Mhm.
Like your
Right,
energy field. So you can actually say, I don't think I'm going to talk to this person. Or you can talk to them when you are feeling up to talk to them,
mhm,
right? Like there's something about feeling up to talking to the person. Like you are actually up to it. Like up
right,
literally as
mhm,
like a visual like up to it.
right,
And you're like,
mhm.
I'm not up to it.
Today
I'm down
I'm
here
just
and I can't
hallelujah.
do it. Like seriously, like I'm down here and I can't do it. I'll wait till I'm up here, and then when I'm up to it, I can talk to you. And so, at first it was kind of hard for her, but she has told me like the last couple of times, yeah, I just decided I will call them back. I said, exactly. It's
Right,
not as though you don't speak to them. I'm not saying like dismiss
mhm,
the person and never talk to them again, but they
mhm,
don't seem to care that they're coming to you with all of this whatever, right? And
mhm,
draining you and attacking you and making you frustrated and stuff. I said, so you have to actually care and protect your own kind of space. They're not
right,
going to protect it. And
And
so,
sometimes you have to be more verbal, you know? Like, can you hear me? Because I hit it
yeah, but
again.
we're
Okay.
people pleasers, right? Women also are people pleasers. So we don't always want to disappoint, and we don't speak up for ourselves. We don't say what we
Mhm,
need because we're so
mhm.
busy worried about what this other person needs and what
Yeah,
they.
but see, the difference is I'm a advocate for teaching people how to treat you, like, period.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
everyone. So sometimes, like I always say, you can say anything to anyone respectfully, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's as simple as, look, I was trying to do this for you and you don't seem to understand that. So now I don't feel like talking to you. When you want to talk to me respectfully, then you could call me back. But that's not rude. That's just a fact, right? If
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing anything for you, I'm not getting anything out of this, then you need to show some type of gratitude at some point. And if
Yeah,
you can't be respectful, then how about you just not call me? You don't have to say that, but you could get off the phone. You know,
right.
and the next time they call you, they're not going to call you screaming and acting crazy either because they know you're going to do the same thing again.
Yeah, they call somebody else.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not. You're not
Yeah,
gonna be the person.
that's like my brother, he'll call me and he'll say something and I'll disagree, and I'm like, "Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, and this is why," and blah, blah, blah. I'll give him all of the things that I think, and he's like, "Alright, I don't wanna talk to you now." I'm like, "Okay, goodbye." Click. Hang up the phone. Like, "Don't call me. You wanted me to co-sign you, I'm not. Now you don't
Yeah, I'm
wanna
not
talk.
gonna do that.
Okay, bye." You know?
Doing that
So,
today.
yeah, I'm not doing that.
Not doing that today. Not up to it.
You That's why I always say, "Don't call me if you don't wanna hear the truth. Don't call me. It's better that you don't. Call someone else."
Yeah,
Yeah.
some people, yeah, they can't handle it. They can't handle
Mhm.
the truth. So if they don't want to hear it, they're not gonna call you.
That's okay. I'm okay with that. I'm okay
That's
with that.
protecting your space though, right? Like that's still like that's what we saying. That's good because that's now protecting your space. That's one less
Mhm.
thing that you have to worry about deflecting. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? So
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't get
true.
your
It's true.
soul and
Yeah.
bring you down for
Mhm.
sure.
For sure.
Well, I feel like we have said a lot of things, Tamara.
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like we have talked a lot about happiness. We have even shared some
Mhm.
tips that people
Mhm.
can take on for themselves to figure out who
Mhm.
they are, what they enjoy,
Mhm.
what brings them fun, even just something as
Mhm.
simple as what do you like doing? Just
Right.
start there. Like start
Mhm.
small. You know, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be that you are this evolved, self-aware person,
Mhm.
but definitely take the time to get to know who you are. Because like you said,
Mhm.
this is the only life, right? So
Mhm.
you want to make sure that you are living intentionally because
Mhm.
most people I don't think are. They're just kind
Mhm.
of said kind of bopping through life,
Yeah, I call them floaters.
yeah, whatever happens to them,
Mhm.
they respond. I heard
Mhm.
someone else say it was like improvisation. They have
Mhm.
this improvisational approach to life,
I
which
like
is like similar. It's like, yeah, whatever's happening, I'm just gonna, move in that direction instead of like really taking control, understanding who you are and taking control of your life. Like that's
Mhm.
what you need to be doing.
Right, in order to be living it, right, and not existing in it.
Yeah, with any sort of,
Mhm,
joy or fulfillment, you can't allow
mhm,
other people to like just move you along their agenda
mhm,
because you're
mhm.
never going to get to what it is that, you're here to do.
Yeah, your purpose. Yeah, because I feel like we all have one. It's just a matter of finding it. It can just be you're at work and the older people like talking to you and now they vent to you and now that's your purpose to help older people. It could be anything. It
It
doesn't
could
have
be.
to be anything,
Yeah.
great magnitude. It can be something simplistic. But a lot of the times you're a blessing to others
Yep.
when you are naturally you, when you are
Exactly.
who you are, you know.
Yeah, we're all meant to be who we are.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like a unfolding. This is where I'm coming to in my life. I'm just like taking off layers. To
Mhm.
like reveal what's been under there all this time that like life and people and
Mhm.
society has like piled on. It's like, I don't want
Right.
that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that.
Right.
No, I want to get back to who I
Mhm.
really am, like the heart
And
of
you
me.
know what's funny is that one of the things I always say, which is a little much, but there are like billions of sperm cells happening before your mom is impregnated. There's a reason you're here. Right.
Yes.
There's a reason. I don't know what it is. You need to figure it out, but there's a reason that you're here. It's for a purpose of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're right.
Mhm.
Because there's a fight with them sperm. There's like tens of thousands of them, right? Swimming, swimming, swimming as best they
Right,
can. And
right,
only one egg. One.
right, right,
One is gonna win the race, right? And so because that sperm met that egg and created you, you're right.
Mhm.
That is a miracle, really.
It
It's
is. It
a miracle
absolutely is.
that you owe yourself to, live out the best way that
Mhm.
you can.
Right.
And many people they don't see life like that, but
Mhm.
I do, just like you
I
do.
I
Yeah,
do. Mhm. It
exactly.
can,
And
it can be
if
fun.
nothing else, honor your sperm.
Out of the fight. Out of the fight.
That little swimmer that won that race. What are you doing to honor him?
Right, right. That's right.
Honor.
That's right. That's
He
right.
wants his recognition. And on that note, Tamara, I think we are done with our happiness chat for the day.
Okay.
And thank you so much. This has been
Thank you.
great. This
It
has
was
been
fun.
great.
It
Yeah,
was
it was
fun.
a lot of fun. And I do think there's more topics we can explore. So we're gonna have to figure
Okay.
this out.
I'm down. I'm
Yeah,
down.
you have a lot of great insights. And I think you could teach people some things. You know what I
Thank you.
mean? Because you're just so you. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like you have
Mhm.
really done the work to
Mhm.
actually be good with who you are and who you're becoming and
Mhm.
are really focused on making sure that not only are you becoming someone that you care about, but you're helping other people become someone that they not care
Mhm.
about, but that someone that they, love and respect and want to be,
And
right?
deserve to be, right?
Yes, and deserve
Um,
to be.
yeah. One of the
Mhm.
things that I always, and I'll leave you with this one. I read something and it said, continue to be childlike, right? Like
Mm,
children always are fully present in each moment. Like
yep.
if and that to me is something that you could always remind yourself of to stay fully present and stay a kid, always curious, always learning, not just about other things, but even yourself, right? And
Mhm.
I think that also will help you as you find out who you are and what makes you happy and what gives you joy.
Yep.
Mm,
Follow your fun and stay curious.
okay. Yep. See, I like it.
'Cause I
Okay.
love it.
All right. Well,
Alrighty, have a great
thank
night.
you. Thank
Thank you
you.
for
You
all
too.
of those who have tuned in either
Mhm.
now or on the replay. We
Okay.
appreciate
All right. So see you later.
you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.